Her billionaire husband introduced her as a servant and called his mistress his wife. Moments later, she stood up as the real owner and ruined them in front of everyone. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, we come before you with humble hearts. Please cover every woman in this family with divine strength, good health, and unshakable peace. Lift the burdens they carry in silence, honor the sacrifices they make every day, and surround them with love that never fails. Let their hearts be calm, their bodies be strong, and their lives be filled with dignity, protection, and endless grace. Where there is pain, bring healing. Where there is worry, bring comfort. Where there is tiredness, renew their spirit. They are the backbone of families, the quiet power of love, and a priceless blessing to this world. My beautiful family, I share my heart with you because you matter to me. Your support, your presence, and your love mean everything. If this prayer touched you, please like the video and leave a comment. It takes only a moment, but it keeps this family connected and strong. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write I am with Mr. Peter. There's a difference between loving someone and making them your religion. I didn't just love Henry. I worshipped at the altar of us. The first time Elise Villani saw Henry Thornton, he was crying in a hospital waiting room at 3 in the morning, not the quiet, dignified tears people shed in sterile corridors. These were the raw, gasping sobs of a man whose world had just shattered. She was working the overnight shift in the ICU, had been a nurse for several years by then, and grief was something she knew well. But something about the way this man folded into himself in the corner made her stop walking. She should have kept moving, should have let him break in private, but Elise had never been good at walking past pain. "Sir?" Her voice was soft, careful. "Can I get you some water? Coffee?" He looked up at her with eyes so devastated they stole her breath. His face was wet, his hands trembling. "My father. He's dying. The doctors say maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, but he's dying and I'm not ready and I don't know how to do this." Elise sat down beside him without asking permission. The plastic chair creaked under her weight. "What's your name?" "Henry." His voice cracked around the word. "Henry Thornton." "I'm Elise. I'm one of the ICU nurses." "Your father, is he awake right now?" "Sometimes, in and out. He keeps asking for my mother, but she died when I was 12. He forgets she's gone. Keeps asking where she is, and I have to keep telling him she's dead and watching him remember all over again." His whole body shook. "I can't keep doing that. I can't keep breaking his heart every 10 minutes. That must be unbearable. For both of you." Henry looked at her then, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Not attraction, not yet, just recognition. Two people acknowledging each other's humanity in a place where death lived in every room. "Can I tell you something?" Henry whispered, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm terrified. Not of him dying. I mean, I am, but that's not the worst part. I'm terrified of being alone after. He's all I have left in this world. No siblings, extended family that stopped calling years ago, just him. And when he's gone, I'll be the last one. The end of the line." Elise reached out, squeezed his hand. His skin was cold despite the hospital's warmth. "You're not alone right now." That night she stayed with Henry's father when Henry couldn't bear to watch anymore. The old man's breathing was labored, each inhale a battle. She held his weathered hand, stroked his forehead when he became agitated, sang softly when the monitors beeped their warnings. When Henry returned from his break, he found her sitting beside his father's bed in the dim light, still holding that hand, still singing. "You didn't have to do that," Henry said from the doorway. "I know. Why did you?" Elise looked at the sleeping old man, tubes and wires keeping him tethered to life, then at Henry. "Because nobody should die alone, and nobody should grieve alone either." Henry's father passed away 3 nights later. Elise was there for all of it, her shift long over, but she stayed anyway. She held the old man's hand as his breathing slowed, then stopped. She held Henry as he collapsed, his grief so big it consumed the room. They sat in that hospital room for hours after the body had been taken away, Henry's head on her shoulder, her arms around him, neither of them speaking because there were no words big enough. At the funeral, Henry couldn't stand during the eulogy. His legs literally gave out halfway through his planned speech. Elise caught him, wrapped herself around him right there in the church pew, and held him together while he shook. People stared. She didn't care. This man was drowning and she wasn't going to let him go under, not on her watch. After the funeral, after everyone else left with their casseroles and empty condolences, Henry showed up at the hospital every night. He'd sit in the cafeteria during Elise's breaks, bring her tea in a thermos because the hospital coffee tasted like regret, and they'd talk. About everything, about nothing, about his father's terrible jokes and his mother's smile, and how sometimes he'd hear a song and forget for a second that they were gone. "I keep thinking I should be over it," Henry said one night, hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "It's been weeks. People keep saying he's in a better place and time heals, and I just want to scream at them. My father is dead. There is no better place than alive." "Grief doesn't have a timeline," Elise told him, covering his hand with hers. "It moves through you at its own pace. Anyone who tells you different doesn't understand loss. They've been lucky enough to never have their heart ripped out. You understand it, though. I can tell from the way you talk about it, like you've been there." Elise nodded slowly, remembering. "My brother. He died when I was in college, car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Some days I still reach for my phone to call him before I remember he won't answer. Probably never will stop doing that." Henry turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. "I'm sorry. That's not enough, those words, but I don't have better ones." "Me too." That night, Henry walked Elise to her car at the end of her shift. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold and purple. Everything looked new. He stopped her before she got in, hand gentle on her arm. "Can I see you? Outside of this hospital? Like as a person, not just a grieving mess who cries on your shoulder every night?" Elise smiled, despite her exhaustion. "You're not a mess, Henry. You're human." "That's not an answer." "Yes, I'd like that very much." Their first real date was at a diner right after Elise's night shift. She was exhausted, hair in a messy bun, still wearing her scrubs under her jacket because she hadn't had time to change. Henry looked at her across the table like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, like she was art in a museum. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious, touching her face. "Do I have something on my face?" You're just remarkable. You know that? You're genuinely remarkable. I'm a tired nurse eating pancakes in wrinkled scrubs at 6 in the morning. That's not remarkable, that's just survival. You sat with my father while he died, a complete stranger. You held me while I broke. You show up for people, Elise, really show up. That's the rarest thing in the world. Most people just perform caring. You actually do it. Something in Elise's chest cracked open. She'd spent so much of her life taking care of other people, being strong for everyone else, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Really, truly seen. They fell into each other after that, fast and complete and terrifying in its intensity. Henry would meet her after every shift, no matter how late, no matter how early. He learned her coffee order, memorized which songs made her smile, figured out that when she was stressed, she needed silence, not solutions, just his presence. He'd hold her and let her breathe. Elise learned Henry too, learned he had panic attacks sometimes, sudden and overwhelming, his breath catching and his chest tightening. Learned that he needed to talk about his parents constantly to keep them alive in his memory. That silence felt like betrayal. Learned that beneath his professional polish and careful manners was a man terrified of being left behind again, abandoned by everyone he loved. One night, they were at his apartment watching a movie neither of them were paying attention to. Elise had her head on his chest, could feel his heartbeat under her ear, steady and strong. His fingers played with her hair absently. Halfway through, she felt his breathing change, quicken. "Henry, you okay?" "I can't breathe." His voice was tight, panicked. "I can't, Elise, I can't breathe. Something's wrong." She sat up immediately, took his face in her hands, forced him to look at her. "Look at me, just me, nothing else. Match my breathing. In through your nose, count to 4. Hold it. Out through your mouth, count to 6. There you go. I've got you. You're safe. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." She breathed with him, slow and deliberate, until the panic passed and he could breathe again. When he could finally speak, he whispered, "I'm sorry. You must think I'm pathetic." "I think you're the bravest person I know. You lost everything and you're still here, still trying, still getting up every morning even though it hurts. That's not weakness, Henry. That's the definition of strength." He kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of something that felt like forever, tasted like hope. Their love grew roots after that, deep ones that tangled together underground where no one could see. He started cooking her favorite meals so they'd be ready when she got home from her overnight shifts, even though he was terrible at cooking and burned everything the first dozen tries. She started keeping a change of clothes at his place, a toothbrush in his bathroom, pieces of her life scattered through his. They talked about the future like it was something they were building together, brick by careful brick. One morning, Henry woke her up before dawn. "Come with me. I want to show you something important." He drove them to a small cemetery outside the city, morning mist still clinging to the ground. Led her to 2 graves, side by side, fresh flowers already there. His parents. "I come here every week," Henry said, voice soft in the quiet. "Talk to them. Tell them about my life, about work, about everything. And lately, all I talk about is you." He turned to her, took both her hands in his. "I want them to meet you, officially." Elise's eyes filled with tears. "Henry." "Mum, Dad," he said to the graves, voice breaking. "This is Elise. She's everything I never knew I needed. She's kind and strong, and she makes me believe I can be whole again, that broken things can be put back together. She's the reason I'm not completely lost. She saved me." Elise knelt down, touched both headstones, the marble cold under her palms. "I'll take care of him. I promise you both. I'll take care of your son like he's precious, because he is." That promise became the foundation of everything that came after. Time passed like water, easy, natural, inevitable. They moved in together, combining their lives into something new. Henry asked her to quit nursing one night over dinner, said he wanted to take care of her for once, give her a break from the exhausting overnight shifts that left her hollow. "Let me support us," he said, reaching across the table. "You've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. Let me take care of you for a change. Let me give you something back." Elise hesitated. Her mother had warned her repeatedly, voice tight with concern. "Baby, don't give up your career for a man. I don't care how much you love him, don't do it." But when Elise looked at Henry, she saw her future, saw children and Sunday mornings and growing old together, saw safety and home and belonging, saw everything she'd ever wanted. "Okay," she told him. "Okay, yes." She quit nursing, started staying home, cooking, cleaning, building a life that revolved around Henry's career and their shared dreams. She told herself it was temporary, that she'd go back eventually, but the days turned into weeks, turned into months, and she never did. He proposed on a random Tuesday. No grand gesture, no ring hidden in champagne or elaborate plan, just them in the kitchen, her cooking dinner, him watching her from the doorway with an expression she couldn't read. "Marry me," he said. She turned around, spatula still in her hand. "What?" "Marry me, right now, today, tomorrow, I don't care. I just want to be your husband, want you to be my wife, want to promise you forever in front of everyone who matters." "Henry, you don't even have a ring." "I don't need a ring, I just need you. Say yes, Elise. Please say yes." She said yes through happy tears, through laughter, through joy so big it felt like it might crack her ribs. They got married in her mother's backyard on a perfect spring day. Small ceremony, intimate, just family and close friends. Henry's vows destroyed her in the best possible way. "Elise," he said, voice shaking, eyes wet. "You found me in the darkest moment of my life, and you didn't try to fix me. You didn't try to make it better or tell me it would be okay. You just sat in the dark with me until I was ready to find light again. You saw me when I was broken and you didn't run. You stayed, you always stay. I will spend every single day of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. You are my home, my heart, my everything. I love you beyond words, beyond reason, beyond anything I thought I was capable of feeling." Elise could barely speak through her tears. Her vows came out as whispers. "I choose you, Henry, not just today, every day, forever and always." They danced under string lights as the sun set, his arms around her, her head on his chest. "I'm the luckiest man alive," he whispered into her hair. She believed him. With everything in her, she believed him. The early years of marriage were golden. Henry would leave notes for her before work, small things, sweet things. She'd surprise him with his favorite meals, with small gestures of love. They'd make love slowly, tenderly, like they had all the time in the world and nothing could touch them. One night, wrapped up in bed together, Henry traced patterns on her bare skin. "Do you ever think about how easily we could have missed each other? If my father had gone to a different hospital, if you'd been on a different shift that night." "But we didn't miss each other," Elise said, kissing his shoulder. "We found each other exactly when we needed to." "Promise me something," Henry said seriously, pulling back to look at her. "Promise me we'll always be like this, that we'll never lose this, that you'll never stop loving me." "I promise," Elise whispered. "I promise with everything I am." She meant it with every cell in her body. This love felt permanent, unbreakable, the kind of love that survives everything life throws at it. She was wrong. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just made a promise she couldn't keep. Because the man holding her, the man she'd rebuilt herself around, the man she'd sacrificed everything for, he was already changing, already pulling away, already noticing other women, already wondering if he'd settled, if there was something better out there, already building resentment for the woman who'd seen him at his weakest. But in that moment, wrapped in his arms, Elise Villani believed in forever. That belief would be the thing that destroyed her. "I gave up who I was to become his wife. He gave up nothing and still wanted more." Chapter 2. The night she became a ghost. "You know what's worse than being hated, being erased, like you never mattered at all?" The dress was emerald green, Henry's favorite color on her. He'd told her once that she looked like art when she wore green, that it made her skin glow, made her eyes shine. Elise had spent weeks preparing for tonight. Henry's company was throwing a massive celebration for his promotion to vice president, and she wanted everything to be perfect. She'd used the last of her personal savings, money she'd squirreled away from birthdays and holidays before she quit working, to buy this dress. She wanted to look perfect for him, wanted everyone at his company to see her standing beside him and think that's his wife, that's the woman who believed in him, that's his partner. She'd done her makeup carefully, watching tutorials online, practicing for days. Rehearsed small talk she could make with his colleagues about quarterly reports and market trends, things she'd learned from listening to his work calls. She wanted to be the kind of wife who made him proud, who fit seamlessly into his professional world. The hotel was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, marble floors so polished she could see her reflection. Women in designer gowns that probably cost more than Elise's car. Men in expensive suits that screamed power and success. Elise felt a flutter of nerves but pushed it down. She belonged here. She was Henry's wife. That was her ticket in. She walked up to the entrance with her head high. 2 security guards stood at the doors with clipboards and stern expressions. "Name, please?" One asked without looking up, pen poised. Elise Thornton. I'm Henry Thornton's wife. The guard scanned his list carefully, frowned, scanned again, finger moving down the page. I don't see an Elise Thornton on the guest list. Elise's stomach dropped like a stone. There must be a mistake. My husband is the guest of honor tonight. I'm his wife. We've been married for 5 years. Can you check again? The guard looked uncomfortable now, shifting his weight. Ma'am, I've checked twice. I can only let in people on the list. Can you please just call Henry? Check with him. He'll confirm. This is obviously just an administrative error. The guard sighed, pulled out a radio. Sir, we have a situation at the entrance. A woman claiming to be your wife says her name is Elise Thornton. Static crackled. Then Henry's voice came through, annoyed and distant, like she was bothering him. Who? Elise's heart stopped. Says her name is Elise Thornton, claims she's your wife. A pause. A long, horrible pause. Then, oh, right. Tell her to use the service entrance around back. She's helping with catering tonight. The words hit Elise like a physical blow. She actually staggered backward, had to catch herself on the railing. I'm sorry, what? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. The guard wouldn't meet her eyes now. Ma'am, he says you're with the catering staff. Service entrance is around the back of the building. I'm his wife. We're married. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, tried to pull up their wedding photos, evidence, proof. Look, this is us. This is our wedding day. That's him. That's me. We're married. Mom, I'm just doing my job. If you're not on the guest list, I can't let you through these doors. I'm sorry. People were starting to stare now. A couple in elegant clothing walked past, slowing down to watch, whispering to each other. Elise saw pity in the woman's eyes, disgust in the man's, like she was making a scene, being difficult, refusing to accept reality. She stood there for a long moment, frozen in place, her mind trying to process what was happening. Then, on legs that didn't feel like her own anymore, she walked around the building. Past the valet parking where expensive cars gleamed, past the red carpet where photographers waited, to the back alley where delivery trucks unloaded supplies and trash bins overflowed. The service entrance was a metal door propped open with a milk crate. Inside, catering staff rushed around in black uniforms, organized chaos. A woman with a clipboard and a headset saw Elise standing there in her emerald dress, looking lost. You're late. Here. She shoved an apron at Elise without really looking at her. Put this on. We need you on champagne service. Guests are already arriving and we're understaffed. I don't work here. Then why are you coming through the service entrance? The woman looked her up and down impatiently. Look, I don't have time for drama tonight. You want to work or not? Because if not, I need to call the agency for a replacement. Elise's hands trembled violently as she tied the apron over her beautiful dress, over the fabric she'd saved for, over the hope she'd worn like armor, over the future she thought she had. Someone thrust a silver tray of champagne flutes into her hands. The tray was heavy, unbalanced. Ballroom. Go. Table service after. She walked through the industrial kitchen, past cooks shouting orders and dishwashers scrubbing, through a service door hidden behind heavy drapes. And then she was in the ballroom. It was breathtaking. Even through her shock, she could see how beautiful it was. Hundreds of people in glittering clothes, a live orchestra playing something classical, tables draped in silk. Everything was beautiful, perfect, expensive. Exactly the kind of event Henry had always dreamed about, and she was invisible. She walked through the crowd with her tray. People took glasses without looking at her face. She was a hand, a function, a servant, not a person. Then she saw him. Henry stood near the center of the room laughing at something. He looked radiant, happier than she'd seen him in months, maybe years. His suit was new, expensive, perfectly tailored. She didn't recognize it. When had he bought that? And there was a woman on his arm. Blonde, stunning, confident in the way that comes from never doubting your place in a room. She wore a dress that probably cost more than everything Elise owned combined. Her hand rested possessively on Henry's chest, comfortable, familiar, like it belonged there. Elise's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the edge of a table to steady herself, champagne glasses rattling on her tray. She watched, frozen, as Henry leaned down and whispered something in the woman's ear. The woman threw her head back and laughed, the sound carrying across the room. Then she kissed him, right there, in front of everyone, in front of his entire company. And Henry kissed her back, deeply, possessively, like he meant it. Elise's vision blurred. The tray slipped from her hands, crystal shattered on marble floor. The sound was deafening in the sudden silence that followed. Everyone turned, stared, hundreds of eyes on her. Henry's head snapped up, his eyes found hers across the room. For a single moment, just one heartbeat, she saw recognition. Then something else, something so much worse than anger, embarrassment, disgust, like she was an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. He stormed toward her, face twisted with irritation, grabbed her arm so tightly it hurt, his fingers digging into her flesh. "What the hell are you doing here?" She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at him. This man she'd loved, this stranger. "Henry," she finally whispered, "I'm your wife." He laughed, actually laughed, loud and cruel and sharp enough to cut. "You're not my wife. You're a mistake I'm correcting. You're an embarrassment." The blonde woman appeared beside him, phone out, already recording. "Baby, is this the crazy ex you told me about?" "Yeah. I'm sorry about this, Heather. I thought we were done with this drama. I told her to stay away." Heather. The woman had a name. The woman kissing her husband, wearing his ring, standing in her place, had a name. "I'll handle this," Henry said to Heather, his voice gentle with her, tender. Then to the security guards, "Get her out of here, now, before she makes this worse." Two guards appeared from nowhere, grabbed Elise's arms, one on each side. "Henry, please," Elise's voice cracked. "Please, just talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. Don't make this worse than it already is. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. We're done. We've been done. Accept it. I'm your wife. We've been married for 5 years. You made vows. You promised security. Remove her immediately. If she resists, call the police. I want her banned from this property." They dragged her backward, through the ballroom, through the lobby, past all those beautiful people in their beautiful clothes. Everyone watching, everyone whispering, everyone recording on their phones. Heather's voice carried across the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh my God, some women just can't let go. It's honestly pathetic, like, read the room, honey." Laughter, agreement, pity. The guards deposited Elise outside in the rain that had started to fall, heavy drops that soaked through her dress immediately. They went back inside without a word, the doors closing with a final sounding click. She stood there in her emerald dress, apron still tied around her waist, makeup running in black streaks down her face, completely destroyed. She didn't know how long she stood there, minutes, hours. Time stopped having meaning. Finally, she walked to her car, sat in the driver's seat, couldn't turn the key, couldn't move, couldn't process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed, a notification. Someone had tagged her in a video. She clicked it with shaking hands. It was her, dropping the tray, glasses exploding, the guards grabbing her, Henry's disgusted face, her begging, and the caption, "When your man's psycho ex crashes his party, security had to drag her out. So embarrassing for him." The video already had thousands of views. The comments were brutal, endless, crushing. What a stalker. Feel bad for the guy? She seems legitimately unhinged. Imagine being this desperate. No wonder he left her. Elise dropped the phone, pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, and screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw, until there was nothing left inside her but hollow silence. Then she drove home, to the house she shared with Henry, the home they'd built together with promises and plans. She walked inside. Everything was the same. Their wedding photo on the mantel, smiling faces from another lifetime. His coffee cup in the sink from this morning. The throw blanket they'd picked out together draped over the couch. Books they'd read together. Movies they'd watched. A whole life. But nothing was the same. Nothing would ever be the same again. She walked to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror. Mascara streaked down her face in ugly trails, eyes red and swollen, the emerald dress rumpled and stained with champagne and rain. She didn't recognize the woman staring back at her. She slid down the wall, sat on the cold tile floor in her ruined dress, and let herself break. She cried until she couldn't breathe anymore, until her chest ached and her head pounded, until the pain was so big it didn't fit inside her body anymore. And somewhere in the breaking, something else broke too. The part of her that believed in fairy tales, the part that thought love conquered all, the part that trusted blindly and gave completely. That part died on a bathroom floor while the video of her humiliation spread across the internet like wildfire. He didn't just betray me, he erased me in front of everyone and made it entertainment. Chapter 3. The morning her life shattered completely. They say home is where the heart is. What happens when your heart walks in with another woman and tells you to leave? Elise hadn't slept. She'd been sitting on the couch all night, still wearing the emerald dress now dry and stiff with rain, waiting for Henry to come home, to explain, to tell her this was all a horrible misunderstanding, something, anything that would make sense of the nightmare her life had become in a single night. The sun rose slowly, light filtering through the windows she'd picked out, curtains she'd hemmed herself, and still, she sat, waiting. She heard his key in the lock around mid-morning. Her heart jumped despite everything. Maybe he'd come to apologize, maybe they could fix this, maybe... Henry walked in. Heather was with him, both laughing about something, comfortable, intimate. They saw Elise. The laughter died. Henry's face hardened immediately. "You're still here." It wasn't a question. It was disappointment, disgust. Elise's voice cracked when she tried to speak. "Henry, what's happening? Last night, you called her your wife. You let them throw me out like garbage. I'm your wife. We've been married for 5 years. You made vows to me. Don't." He held up his hand, cutting her off. "Don't do this victim thing, Elise. It's beneath you. It's pathetic, and it's not going to work." Heather walked past Elise like she wasn't there, didn't exist, looked around the living room with an appraising eye. "This is nice, smaller than I expected from the outside, but we can definitely work with it. Maybe repaint, new furniture." She was evaluating, planning, like she already lived here, like this was already hers. "Henry, please." Elise hated how her voice sounded, desperate, broken, small. "Talk to me, just us. Please, just 5 minutes alone." Henry sat on their couch, the couch where they used to watch movies with her head on his chest. "There's nothing to talk about, Elise. I'm done. We're done. This marriage is done. I need you to pack your things and leave. Today. I'm not asking." The words hit her like physical blows. She actually staggered backward, caught herself on the wall. "This is our home, our marriage. You made vows. You promised me forever. I made a mistake." He said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Like 5 years of her life meant nothing. "I was grieving my father. You were there. You were convenient, comfortable. But comfort isn't love, Elise. You and I both know this was never going to last." "That's not true. You loved me. You told me. I told you what you needed to hear, what I needed to hear at the time. But let's be honest, you were always just a band-aid, a warm body to stop me from feeling alone. Heather is what I actually want, someone on my level." Heather sat in Elise's favorite chair, the one by the window where Elise read every morning. "No hard feelings, sweetheart," she said, examining her perfect nails. "You seem sweet enough. But honey, look at you. Look at him. You're a nurse who doesn't even work anymore. He's a vice president. This was always temporary. You had to know that deep down." Elise looked at Henry, really looked at him, trying desperately to find the man who held her in the hospital while he cried, the man who promised to spend his life making her feel chosen, the man who said she saved him. He wasn't there. Maybe he never was. "I gave up my career for you," Elise whispered, her voice barely audible. I gave up everything, my job, my income, my independence. You asked me to. You said you wanted to take care of me. And I did, for 5 years. He pulled out his wallet, counted out bills with careful precision. Here, this should cover first and last month's rent somewhere. Consider it severance for services rendered. Take it and go. She stared at the money in his hand, bile rising in her throat. For 5 years of her life, for her nursing career, for her dreams, for her identity. I have nothing, Henry. No job, no recent work experience, no references. You asked me to trust you. You said I'd never have to worry. I'm not responsible for your bad decisions, Elise. You chose to quit. You chose to become dependent. That's on you, not me. He dropped the money on the coffee table like it was contaminated. Pack your things. Be gone by tonight. I'm staying at Heather's place. When I come back tomorrow, I expect this place empty of your stuff. You understand? He stood up, kissed Heather, long, deep, thorough, making absolutely certain Elise saw every second. His hand tangled in Heather's hair. Heather moaned softly against his mouth. They pulled apart. Henry didn't even look at Elise as he spoke. If you're not gone by tomorrow, I'll have the locks changed and your stuff put on the curb. Don't test me. They left together. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Elise stood alone in the house that was no longer hers, in the life that was no longer hers, in the marriage that apparently never really was, just her delusion. She walked to the bedroom on autopilot, her feet moving without conscious thought, started packing. Her hands were shaking so badly she kept dropping things. Clothes spilled onto the floor. She tried to fold them, gave up, just stuffed them into a suitcase she'd bought for their honeymoon, a trip they'd taken to the beach where everything was perfect. She looked around the bedroom, the bed where they'd made love, where Henry used to pull her close in his sleep and whisper her name like a prayer, the dresser where he'd leave her notes saying he loved her, that she made his life worth living, the window where they'd watch rain together and plan their future, talk about baby names and vacation destinations and growing old together. All of it was a lie. She packed one suitcase. That was all she could carry, all she had the strength for. Everything else would have to stay. She walked through the house one last time, her footsteps echoing in the silence, touched the couch where they'd spent lazy Sundays, the kitchen where she'd cooked countless meals, trying to be perfect for him, the porch where they'd talked about dreams and promises and forever. She picked up the money from the coffee table. It felt dirty in her hands, blood money, her soul's price tag. She left her key on the counter beside a note she didn't remember writing that just said, "I'm sorry I wasn't enough." She walked to her car, put the suitcase in the trunk, sat in the driver's seat, couldn't turn the key, couldn't move, couldn't breathe through the weight crushing her chest. She called her mother with shaking fingers, barely managed to whisper, "Mama, can I come home?" Her mother heard everything in those 5 words, the devastation, the fear, the complete annihilation of everything Elise thought her life was. "I'm already making up your room, baby. Drive safe. Come home to me." Elise drove to her childhood home, vision blurred with tears that wouldn't stop falling. She nearly ran a red light, didn't care, almost hoped she would. Her mother was waiting on the porch before Elise even parked. One look at Elise's face and she was down the steps, pulling her daughter into her arms before Elise could even get out of the car. "He threw me away, Mama." Elise's voice broke into pieces. "Like I was nothing, like I never mattered, like 5 years of marriage was just something that happened to him, not something we built together, like I was disposable." Her mother held her while she sobbed, violent shaking sobs that hurt, rocked her like she did when Elise was small and had nightmares. "I know, baby, I know. I've got you. What's wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? I gave him everything. What more could I have given?" "Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is wrong with him. Do you hear me? Everything. This is not your failure. This is his." But Elise didn't believe it. How could she? The man who promised her forever just handed her money and told her to disappear. The man she'd rebuilt her entire life around just erased her like she was an inconvenience, a mistake he was correcting. Her mother led her inside, up to her childhood bedroom. The walls still had posters from high school. The bed was the same twin bed she'd slept in as a teenager, like she'd never left, like she'd never grown up and fallen in love and destroyed her life for a man who didn't want her. Elise collapsed onto the bed, pulled her knees to her chest, and something inside her that had been holding on, trying to stay strong, trying desperately to believe this could be fixed, finally gave up and shattered. She cried until she had nothing left, until she was empty, hollow, a shell of a person. Her mother sat beside her the entire time, stroking her hair, letting her break completely, knowing sometimes breaking is the only way to start healing. But Elise didn't want to heal. She wanted to stop existing. She wanted to disappear into nothing in a world where love could be this cruel, where promises meant nothing, where she could give everything and still not be enough. "I don't know how to come back from this," Elise whispered into the darkness hours later. "I don't know who I am without him. I built my entire life around being his wife, and now I'm not, and I don't know how to exist." "Then we'll figure that out together," her mother said softly, still stroking her hair like when Elise was small. "One day at a time. 1 hour at a time if we have to. You're not alone, baby. You're never alone." But Elise felt utterly, completely alone. And she couldn't shake the terrible feeling that maybe Henry was right. Maybe she was the problem. Maybe she'd never been enough. Maybe she never would be. "He handed me money for 5 years of my soul. I took it because I had nothing else left." Chapter 4. The Fight to Reclaim Herself. They say God doesn't give you more than you can handle. But what if you're already broken? What if there's nothing left to hold? Elise had been living in her childhood bedroom for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of staring at walls she'd outgrown decades ago. 2 weeks of her mother bringing food she couldn't eat. 2 weeks of existing in a space between who she was and who she'd never be again. She'd lost weight. Too much. Dark circles carved shadows under her eyes deep enough to hold secrets. She looked like a ghost of herself. Maybe that's what she was now. A ghost haunting her own childhood. Her mother was worried. Elise could see it in the way she'd linger in doorways, find excuses to check on her. The way she'd bring soup and sit there until Elise took at least a few bites. One morning, Elise woke up feeling different. Wrong. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick, violently sick, heaving until there was nothing left. Her mother appeared in the doorway moments later, face etched with concern. "Baby, how long has this been happening?" "This is the first time." But her mother's face said she didn't quite believe that. "Elise, when was your last period?" Elise froze over the toilet, her whole body going cold. Tried to think back through the fog of the last few weeks. Couldn't remember. Everything before that night at the party felt like it happened to someone else, to a different Elise in a different lifetime. "I don't know," she whispered. "I honestly don't know." Her mother left without a word, came back 15 minutes later with a drugstore bag, 3 pregnancy tests, different brands, just to be sure. "Take them, all 3, right now." Elise's hands shook as she opened the boxes, took the tests one after another, set them on the counter while they developed. Sat on the bathroom floor with her knees pulled to her chest, her mother sitting beside her. Neither of them spoke. What was there to say? The timer on Elise's phone went off. She couldn't look, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her mother stood up slowly, like she was moving through water. Checked the tests. All 3. Her face changed, softened, broke. "All 3 are positive, baby." Elise stared at the wall, laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Couldn't stop. The sounds coming out of her didn't sound human. Her mother pulled her close, held her while she shook apart. "I'm pregnant," Elise finally managed through the hysteria. "I'm pregnant and I have nothing. No husband, no home, no job, no money except what he gave me to disappear. No health insurance, no future. How am I supposed to— I can't, Mama, I can't do this." "You're not alone. You hear me? You are not alone. We'll figure this out together." But Elise felt utterly, completely alone. That night, she lay in bed with her hand on her still flat stomach. There was a tiny life growing inside her. Henry's baby, part of the man who'd thrown her away like garbage, who'd told her she was a mistake he was correcting. She should have felt joy, terror, something. Instead, she felt numb. She whispered to her belly, her voice hollow, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough. I don't even know if I want to be." The honesty horrified her, made her feel like a monster. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You deserve better than a mother who can't even feed herself, who can't get out of bed, who got thrown away by your father like she never mattered." The baby didn't respond. Of course not. But somehow, having someone to talk to, even someone who couldn't hear her yet, made the emptiness feel less vast, less endless. "I promise you something, though," Elise said, voice breaking. "I won't let you grow up thinking you weren't wanted. Even if your father doesn't want us, I want you. I choose you. You're mine, and I'll protect you, even if I can't protect myself." It was the first true thing she'd felt since that night. The next morning, Elise forced herself out of bed for the first time in days, showered, put on real clothes instead of the same pajamas she'd been wearing, looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her mother nearly cried when she came downstairs. "Baby, I need to get my nursing license active again," Elise said, voice hoarse from disuse. "I need to work. I have a baby coming." "Your certifications expired years ago, honey. It's going to take time to get everything updated. Are you sure you're ready for this?" "I don't have a choice. I have to try." She spent that day making calls, the hospital licensing board, her old nursing school, professional organizations. Each conversation revealed new obstacles, expired certifications, lapsed continuing education requirements, background checks that needed updating, application fees she couldn't afford. It felt impossible. Each phone call another reminder of how completely she'd erased her professional self for a man who'd erased her. But she kept calling, kept fighting, because giving up meant her daughter would have nothing. By the end of the day, she had a plan. It would take 6 weeks minimum to get her license reactivated. She'd need to complete continuing education courses online, pass a competency exam, pay fees with money she didn't have. Her mother overheard the last call. "I'll pay the fees, baby, whatever you need." "Mama, you can't afford—" "I have savings. This is what savings are for. Let me help you." That night, Elise started the first online continuing education module. Medical terminology she'd forgotten, procedures that had changed, new technologies she'd never used. Her brain felt sluggish, rusty, like an engine that hadn't run in years. But she pushed through, studied until her eyes burned, took notes, made flashcards. Slowly pieces started coming back, the muscle memory of nursing, the knowledge she'd spent years building. During a study break, she opened her laptop and pulled up social media. She shouldn't have, but some masochistic part of her needed to see. Henry's profile was public. She looked at his recent posts, pictures of him and Heather at expensive restaurants, at charity galas, at beach vacations, all posted in the last few weeks while Elise's life had been imploding. The comments were full of congratulations. "You two look so happy. Perfect couple. When's the wedding?" No one mentioned Elise. No one asked what happened to his wife. It was like she'd never existed. She was about to close the laptop when she saw something that made her pause. A comment from someone named Rachel Chen. "Interesting how quickly you moved on. Some of us remember Elise." The comment had been deleted within minutes, but Elise had seen it. Someone remembered, someone questioned. She searched Rachel Chen's profile, found a woman who worked in Henry's department. They'd met once at a company function. Rachel had been kind to her. Elise sent a friend request before she could talk herself out of it. Included a message, "Thank you for remembering me. It means more than you know." Rachel accepted the request within an hour. Sent back, "I'm so sorry for what he did to you. Some of us at the office were disgusted by it. If you ever need anything, let me know." It was a small thing. One person acknowledging her existence. But it felt like oxygen after drowning. 3 weeks into her recertification process, Elise passed her competency exam. Her hands had shaken through the entire practical portion, but the muscle memory was there. Her knowledge was there. She'd done it. She got her active nursing license back a week later. It arrived in the mail, an official document with her name. Proof she existed professionally, proof she had value beyond being someone's wife. Now came the hard part. Finding work. She started applying everywhere. Hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, home health agencies. Most applications had a gap employment question. 5 years with no recent experience was a canyon that swallowed her resume. The rejections piled up. We need someone with recent hands-on experience. The gap in your employment is concerning. We're looking for candidates who have kept their skills current. Each rejection felt personal, another confirmation that Henry had been right. She'd made herself worthless by depending on him. But Elise kept applying. 50 applications, then 75, then 100. She started calling hospitals directly, asking to speak with nurse managers. Most wouldn't take her calls. Those who did were polite, but firm. "I'm sorry, we just can't take the risk with such a significant gap." 4 weeks into her job search, exhausted and broke and terrified, Elise was sitting in her car after another failed interview when her phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Villani, this is Sarah Martinez from St. Catherine's Hospital. We met briefly when you interviewed for our night shift ICU position last week." Elise's stomach dropped. This was the rejection call. They always called for rejections instead of sending emails when they wanted to seem compassionate. "I remember. Thank you for considering me. I'm calling because we'd like to offer you the position, with a supervised probationary period for the first 90 days, but the job is yours if you want it." Elise couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was hearing. "Ms. Villani, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. Yes, I want it. Thank you. God, thank you so much. I'll be honest with you. Your interview was good, but your gap raised concerns. What changed my mind was a call I received from Dr. James Richards. He's head of cardiology at Memorial Hospital. He spoke very highly of you, said you were one of the most dedicated nurses he'd ever worked with, that you'd stayed with his wife through a life-threatening crisis and refused to leave her side even after your shift ended. He said if we didn't hire you, we'd be making a massive mistake." Elise's eyes filled with tears. Dr. Richards. She'd helped his wife Catherine 5 years ago, had held her hand through seizures and hemorrhaging, had fought for her when other nurses wanted to sedate her into compliance. She'd forgotten she'd made that kind of impact, forgotten that her work had mattered to real people with real lives. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept the position. Night shift ICU. Starting salary is $48,000. Benefits kick in after 90 days. Start date is next Monday if that works for you." It works. It absolutely works. After she hung up, Elise sat in her car crying, not the desperate, broken crying of the past weeks, something different, something that felt almost like hope. She had a job, a real job, a way forward that didn't involve depending on anyone else. She put her hand on her belly, felt the slight curve that was starting to show. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I don't know how exactly, but we're going to survive this. I'm going to make sure you have everything I didn't. Security, independence, a mother who knows her own worth." For the first time since that night in the emerald dress, she actually believed it. That evening, she called Dr. Richards' office, left a message with his assistant. "Please tell Dr. Richards that Elise Villani called to say thank you. Tell him he saved me the same way I saved his wife. Tell him I won't waste this chance." She hung up and looked at herself in the mirror. Still thin, still tired, still carrying visible damage, but also something else, something harder, something that looked almost like strength. She'd done this herself, fought for this, earned this, not through luck or charity or someone else's pity, through her own persistence and skill and refusal to give up, even when giving up seemed like the only option. Henry had tried to erase her, had told her she was worthless without him. He was wrong. "My baby's father threw me away, but my baby gave me a reason to stop drowning and start fighting." Chapter 5. The Woman Who Refused to Disappear. Revenge isn't about hate, it's about remembering your own worth. Elise had been back at work for 3 months. The exhaustion was brutal, bone-deep and relentless. Night shifts while pregnant meant she was constantly nauseous, always tired, barely keeping herself upright. But she was doing it. That counted for something. She wore baggy scrubs to hide the bump that was getting harder to conceal. Avoided the break room when certain nurses were there, the ones who whispered about her, kept her head down and did her work. One night, a patient came into the ICU. Overdose. Suicide attempt. A woman in her early 30s, beautiful even in crisis, completely destroyed from the inside out. Elise was assigned to her. She checked vitals, set up the IV, did all the clinical things. But something about this woman's vacant stare made her pause, made her sit down beside the bed even though she had 3 other patients waiting. "Can you tell me your name?" The woman's eyes were open but empty, staring at the ceiling like she was looking through it. Natalie Chen. "I'm Elise. You're safe here." "I don't want to be safe. I wanted to be gone." That was the point. Elise should have noted it in the chart and moved on. Should have let the psych team handle it. But something in Natalie's voice sounded too familiar, too much like the voice in Elise's own head on her darkest days. "What happened?" Natalie's laugh was hollow. "My husband left me, 20 years of marriage. I supported his career through every promotion, every failure, moved across the country 3 times for his jobs, put my own dreams on hold indefinitely, and then he said I wasn't enough anymore, that I'd let myself go, that he deserved better." Elise's hands stilled on the chart. "So I took every pill in the house," Natalie continued, words flat and emotionless. "Because if I'm not enough for the one person I built my entire life around, what's the point? What's the point of me?" "I understand that feeling better than you know." Natalie's eyes finally focused, looking at Elise, really looking. "Do you?" "My husband threw me out 6 months ago, handed me cash and told me I was a mistake he was correcting, called security to have me removed from his work party in front of hundreds of people. So yes, I understand feeling like you're not enough. How are you still here, still functioning? I can't even get out of bed most days." "I'm not sure I am functioning, I'm just moving, going through motions, showing up because I have to." Elise paused, then decided to share something she hadn't told anyone at work. "I'm pregnant. His baby. He doesn't know, probably wouldn't care if he did. But that baby is the only reason I'm still here, because someone needs me to survive, so I survive." Natalie started crying then, real tears, deep, wrenching sobs. "I don't have anyone who needs me. My kids are grown. My friends were all his friends first. My family is across the country. There's no one." Elise took Natalie's hand, held it firmly. "I need you to survive tonight. Can you do that? Just tonight. We'll worry about tomorrow when it comes." "Why do you need me?" "Because if you survive tonight, it proves it's possible. It proves that women like us, women who gave everything and got nothing back, we can make it through. And I need to know that's true. For me, as much as for you." Natalie squeezed her hand back. "Okay, just tonight." Elise stayed with Natalie for the rest of her shift, longer than she should have. They talked about everything, about marriages that had consumed them, about losing themselves in the process of loving someone else, about the terror of rebuilding an identity from nothing. When Elise's shift finally ended, Natalie was stable, sleeping peacefully under psychiatric watch, alive. Dr. Richards found Elise in the locker room. "I saw what you did tonight, staying with that patient. That kind of care is why we brought you back." "I was just doing my job." "No. You were doing what you do best, seeing people's humanity when they've forgotten they have any. Don't lose that, Elise." That conversation stayed with Elise. She'd been so focused on her own pain that she'd forgotten she had something to offer other people. Experience, empathy, understanding of what it meant to be broken and trying to put yourself back together. She started speaking up more at work, offering opinions in patient rounds, suggesting alternative treatments, reminding herself she had knowledge and skill that had nothing to do with being someone's wife. One day during her lunch break, she ran into an old friend from nursing school, Jessica Rodriguez. They'd been close once, study partners and confidants, before Elise had let all her friendships atrophy for Henry. "Oh my God, Elise!" Jessica hugged her, genuine and warm. "I heard you were back. How are you, really?" "Surviving, trying to rebuild." Jessica noticed the way Elise's scrubs hung on her frame, noticed something else too. "Are you pregnant?" "Yes, 5 months." "And the father?" "Not in the picture. Won't be in the picture." Jessica's face showed understanding and sadness. "I'm sorry, but also you look good. Tired as hell but good, strong, like you're finding yourself again." "I'm trying. Some days are better than others." They exchanged numbers, promised to meet for coffee. Jessica said something before leaving that stuck with Elise. "You were going to be a surgeon once, remember? You had such big dreams. Before you got married and everything changed, do you ever think about those dreams?" Elise had forgotten she'd had those dreams, had buried them so deep that she'd forgotten they ever existed. That night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, she opened her laptop, looked up nurse practitioner programs, advanced nursing degrees, specializations she'd once been interested in. The applications were complex, required recommendations, recent work experience, time commitment while working full-time. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything seemed impossible 6 months ago. And here she was, surviving, working, growing a human inside her body while functioning on 4 hours of sleep. Maybe impossible just meant difficult. Maybe it wasn't actually impossible at all. She started quietly researching, not applying yet, just gathering information, building a picture of what her future could look like if she wanted it badly enough. She also started paying attention to conversations at work. Hospital gossip flowed through nurses' stations like water. She listened without engaging, absorbing information. That's how she first heard whispers about Henry's company, about financial irregularities, about questions being raised by the board, about an internal audit that was making people nervous. She heard about his rapid promotion, how some people thought it was too fast, how others wondered what he'd done to impress the right people so completely. She heard about Heather, about how her social media presence seemed carefully curated, about how some people questioned whether the relationship was genuine or strategic. Elise didn't go looking for this information, but she listened when it came to her, stored it away, not for revenge, not yet, just awareness, protection. She'd learned the hard way that ignorance didn't protect her, that not seeing danger didn't make it disappear. One evening, she was at the grocery store when she ran into someone from Henry's office, a woman named Rachel, who'd been kind to her at company functions back when Elise was still Henry's wife. "Elise, oh my God," Rachel looked genuinely happy to see her. "How are you?" "I'm okay, working again." Rachel glanced around like she was checking if anyone was listening. "Can I talk to you, privately, just for a minute?" They moved to a quiet corner near the produce section. "I'm sorry about what happened at the gala," Rachel said quietly. "That was cruel. You didn't deserve that. Thank you. I wanted to reach out after, but I didn't know how. I felt complicit just by working there, by not saying anything." Rachel hesitated. "People at the office talk about how Henry's changed, not in a good way, more aggressive, more willing to throw people under the bus. Some of us wonder what the promotion cost him as a person." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you were good to him. You were good to all of us, and what he did to you was wrong." Rachel looked uncomfortable but determined. "There are rumors about financial issues, about him taking credit for other people's work. Nothing concrete yet, but people are asking questions. I just thought you should know, in case he tries to come after you for anything, in case you need to protect yourself." After Rachel left, Elise stood in the produce section holding a bag of apples she didn't remember picking up, her mind racing. Henry wasn't just cruel. There might be more to the story, more reasons he'd pushed her away so brutally. She thought about what to do with this information. Part of her wanted to investigate, to find out the truth, to gather evidence, but a bigger part of her wanted to focus on her own life, on building something that didn't involve him at all. That night, feeling her baby kick strong and insistent, Elise made a decision. She'd pay attention, she'd stay aware, but she wouldn't go looking for Henry's secrets unless she had to, unless he forced her hand. She'd focus on herself, on rebuilding, on becoming the woman she was meant to be before she'd lost herself in him. She put her hand on her belly. Your father might be hiding things, might be someone worse than I knew, but that's not our problem unless he makes it our problem. Right now, we focus on us, on surviving, on building something beautiful from these broken pieces. Her daughter kicked in response, strong, fierce, like she agreed. I stopped asking why he left me and started asking why I ever thought I needed him in the first place. Chapter 6. The Truth That Found Her. Sometimes the truth finds you when you stop looking away from things that never made sense. Elise was 7 months pregnant now, the bump impossible to hide even under the loosest scrubs. Her co-workers knew. Some were supportive, bringing her snacks and covering when she needed bathroom breaks. Others whispered their judgments loud enough for her to hear. She'd built a routine, work, prenatal appointments, sleep when she could. It was simple, but it was hers. She'd been hearing more workplace gossip about Henry's company, about the internal audit expanding, about board members asking questions, about employees being interviewed by lawyers. Something was brewing, something significant. Then one night, everything changed. Elise was checking on a patient in room 412 when she overheard 2 nurses talking in the hallway. One of them mentioned a name that made her freeze. Yeah, Mitch Thornton, heart attack. He's stable now, but they're keeping him for observation. His wife is in the family waiting room. Thornton. It was a common enough name. Could be coincidence, but Elise had learned not to ignore her instincts. During her break, she pulled up the patient file. Mitchell Thornton, age 68. Emergency contact listed, Margaret Thornton, wife. And a second contact, Henry Thornton, nephew, Henry's uncle. An uncle she'd never known existed during 5 years of marriage. She stood in the nurse's station, processing this information. Henry had told her repeatedly that he had no family, that his father's death had left him completely alone, another lie in a constellation of lies. She thought about requesting a different patient assignment, about maintaining her boundaries, about not getting involved. But something stopped her. Maybe curiosity, maybe the need to understand more about the man who destroyed her. Maybe just exhaustion with running from anything connected to Henry. She went to the family waiting room, found a woman in her late 50s sitting alone, elegant despite her obvious distress. Mrs. Thornton, I'm Elise, one of the ICU nurses. I just wanted to check on you. Can I get you anything? Water, coffee? The woman looked up gratefully. That's very kind. Coffee would be wonderful. I've been here for hours and I'm running on fumes. Elise brought back 2 cups of coffee, sat down beside Margaret, maintaining professional distance but offering quiet company. They talked about Margaret's husband Mitch, about his condition, about how scared she'd been when he'd collapsed. Do you have family you can call? Elise asked gently. Someone to sit with you. Our nephew should be here, but I can't reach him. His phone keeps going straight to voicemail. Margaret's voice held frustration. He's probably busy with work. He's always so busy now. Your nephew? Henry Thornton. We practically raised him after his father died. He's like a son to us. Or he was. Sadness crept into her voice. He's changed so much lately, become someone we barely recognize. Elise should have stayed quiet, should have maintained her professional role, but the words came out anyway. I know Henry. Margaret looked at her more closely. You do? How? We were married for 5 years. It ended badly. Margaret's face transformed. Recognition, understanding, horror. Oh my God, you're Elise. You're her. The woman from his first marriage. First marriage? He's married again? No, I'm sorry. I meant, he told us about you, about the divorce. He said it was amicable, that you wanted different things. Elise almost laughed. Is that what he told you? That's not what happened? Over the next hour, in that quiet waiting room with Margaret's husband stable but sleeping, Elise told her story, not all of it, just enough. The party, the humiliation, the money, the erasure. Margaret cried, actually cried. I'm so sorry. That's not the boy we raised. That's not who he was supposed to become. Tell me about him, Elise said. About who he was before. Because I need to understand how I could have been so wrong about someone. Margaret told her about young Henry, about how broken he'd been after losing both parents, how desperate for love and belonging, how terrified of being abandoned. We thought we were helping him, Margaret said. We gave him everything. Money for school, a place to live, unconditional support. But maybe we enabled something we didn't understand. Maybe we made him believe he was entitled to whatever he wanted. You loved him. That's not enabling. That's family. Is it? Because lately the things he's done, Margaret trailed off. There are things happening, financial issues, problems at his company. Mitch has been so stressed about it. I think that's what caused his heart attack. Elise's attention sharpened. What kind of financial issues? Margaret hesitated, clearly torn between loyalty and truth. Finally, a few months ago, Henry asked to borrow money, $50,000, said it was for an investment opportunity. Mitch gave it to him. We haven't seen a penny back. That's not unusual if it's a long-term investment. Last week, Mitch found out Henry took out a loan in our name, used our credit, forged Mitch's signature. We only found out because the bank called about missed payments. Margaret's voice cracked. My husband spent days investigating, found evidence of more. Emails showing Henry has been embezzling from his own company, taking kickbacks, stealing. Elise felt sick. Did you confront him? Mitch tried. Henry got defensive, made us feel guilty for not trusting him. But Mitch kept digging, found more evidence, was planning to turn it over to Henry's board of directors. Then he had the heart attack. Margaret looked directly at Elise. I think the stress of discovering what his nephew had become literally broke his heart. They sat in silence. Two women connected by the same man's destruction, different victims of the same pattern. Why are you telling me this? Elise finally asked. Because someone needs to stop him before he destroys more lives. Because you deserved better than what he gave you. And because Mitch said something before the ambulance came. He said, someone has to warn Elise. She needs to know what he is. Margaret squeezed Elise's hand. He remembered you from Henry's stories years ago, before everything went wrong. He wanted you protected. I don't need protection from Henry anymore. He's not part of my life. Are you sure? Because men like Henry don't let go easily, especially if they think someone might expose them. A chill ran down Elise's spine. She'd been so focused on rebuilding her own life that she hadn't considered Henry might see her as a threat, that her existence, her knowledge of him, might be dangerous to his carefully constructed image. Mitch compiled evidence, Margaret said quietly. Before the heart attack, he has files, documentation of everything, bank records, emails, proof of fraud and embezzlement. He was going to use it to force Henry to get help, to make him face consequences, but then, where is this evidence now? At our house, in Mitch's office. I can give it to you, if you want it, if you think you might need it someday. Elise thought carefully. Part of her wanted nothing to do with Henry's crimes, wanted to stay as far away from him as possible, but another part remembered Rachel's warning, remembered the whispers about investigations, remembered that Henry had thrown her away brutally and publicly, and might do worse if he felt threatened. Yes, she said finally, I want the evidence, not to hurt him, but to protect myself if I need to. 2 days later, Margaret brought a thick folder to the hospital, handed it to Elise during her break. This is everything. Mitch wanted you to have it. Use it if you need to. Keep yourself safe. That night after her shift, Elise sat in her car with the folder in her lap. Her baby kicked hard, like she was urging her mother to look. She opened the folder. Inside was proof of systematic fraud, bank records showing embezzlement from Henry's company, emails showing he'd stolen business proposals from colleagues and presented them as his own, documentation of the fraudulent loan in Mitch's name, communications with vendors he'd taken kickbacks from, the man she'd thought she knew had been a criminal, not just cruel, actually genuinely criminal. She thought about what to do with this information. Going to the police would mean getting involved in Henry's life again, being dragged into investigations, possibly testifying, reliving trauma. But keeping it meant having protection, having leverage if Henry ever came after her. She drove home, locked the evidence in a fireproof safe she'd bought with her first paycheck, and made a decision. She would keep this information, keep it secure. But she wouldn't use it unless Henry forced her hand, unless he threatened her or her baby. For now, she'd focus on survival, on building her life, on protecting her daughter. But if Henry ever made himself her problem again, she'd have the weapon she needed to end him. While I was drowning, he was stealing from everyone who trusted him. Now I finally understood I wasn't his only victim. I was just his first. Here is Chapter 7. The Reckoning He Earned. Expanded by approximately 12%, original approximately 1,850 words, new approximately 2,080 words. The additions deepen Elise's internal conflict before the meeting, stretch the tension and emotional layers during the confrontation itself, and add a short aftermath scene for fuller processing, without introducing new plot elements, slowing momentum, or harming the story's tone, pacing, or themes. Chapter 7. The Reckoning He Earned. I thought having evidence would be enough. I didn't realize I'd have to face him one more time. 3 years passed. Zora Villani was 2.5 years old, smart, funny, fierce, everything Elise had hoped she'd be and more. She had Elise's eyes and Henry's stubborn jawline. She was perfect. Elise had finished her nurse practitioner degree while working full-time and raising Zora alone. It had been brutal, impossible, but she'd done it anyway. She'd graduated top of her class, started working at a community health clinic serving underserved populations. She'd built a life, small, simple, hers. The evidence from Margaret and Mitch remained locked in her safe. She'd never needed it. Henry had disappeared from her life completely after that night, until the day she saw the news. She was at work, checking a patient's vitals, when the waiting room TV caught her attention. Local news, business segment. Breaking news in the business world tonight. Henry Thornton, Vice President of Strategic Development at Thornton Industries, has been fired amid allegations of financial misconduct. The company's board of directors announced this morning that an internal investigation revealed evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and kickback schemes spanning multiple years. Elise stopped moving, stared at the screen. Henry's professional headshot filled the frame. The news anchor continued. Sources say the investigation began 6 months ago after several employees filed complaints. The district attorney's office is reviewing evidence for possible criminal charges. Thornton could face up to 15 years in prison if convicted. Her patient noticed she'd frozen. "You okay, honey?" "I'm fine. Just surprised by something on the news." But she wasn't fine. She was processing. Henry's crimes had finally caught up with him. The evidence Mitch had compiled had apparently made its way to the right people. Margaret must have turned it over after all. That evening, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Elise, it's Margaret. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the hospital directory." "Is Mitch okay?" "He's fine, fully recovered. But I'm calling about Henry. Have you seen the news?" "I saw. I turned over Mitch's evidence 6 months ago, to Henry's company, to the district attorney. I couldn't watch him destroy more lives. I'm sorry I didn't tell you first. I couldn't let it continue. You did the right thing. He's been calling us, repeatedly, asking for help, for money for lawyers, saying we're betraying him. That family doesn't do this to family." Margaret's voice broke. But Mitch said something important. He said, "Real family doesn't commit fraud and break your heart." I think we're finally accepting that Henry isn't who we wanted him to be. I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be sorry for us. We enabled him for too long. We made excuses. This is us finally taking responsibility. Margaret paused. He asked about you. Elise's blood went cold. What did he ask? He wanted to know if we'd given you evidence, if you were involved in the investigation. I told him the truth, that I'd given you copies but you'd never use them, that you weren't involved at all. I don't think he believed me. Do you think he'll try to contact me? I think he's desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. Please be careful. After they hung up, Elise sat on her couch with Zora sleeping beside her, feeling a creeping sense of dread. Henry knew she had evidence, thought she might have been involved in destroying him. He was facing prison, and he might blame her. She didn't sleep that night. She lay awake replaying Margaret's words, imagining scenarios. What if Henry showed up at her house, at Zora's preschool? What if he tried to paint her as the villain to save himself? The next morning, she called her mother, explained everything. They made a plan together. Extra security measures, changed locks, a basic alarm system for the house, instructions for Zora's preschool about who was allowed to pick her up, practical steps that made the fear feel slightly less amorphous. Still, the days that followed were tense. Elise found herself checking her rearview mirror more often, scanning parking lots, jumping at unexpected knocks. She hated that Henry still had this power, the power to unsettle her life from a distance. 2 weeks later, the call came. She was cooking dinner, Zora coloring at the kitchen table, when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Something made her answer. Elise. The voice was unmistakable, older, rougher, but Henry. She gripped the counter, her knuckles whitening. Henry, I need to see you face to face, please. It's important. Her first instinct was to hang up, to block the number and pretend the call had never happened. But something in his tone, defeated, almost hollow, made her pause. We have nothing to discuss. Please, 1 hour, public place. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I need to say things I should have said years ago. She should have said no, should have protected the peace she'd fought so hard to build. But curiosity won. Or maybe it was the need for finality, the need to look him in the eye one last time and prove to herself that he no longer held any power over her. 1 hour, she said finally. Public place, tomorrow afternoon, the coffee shop on Maple and 5th. If you're even 1 minute late, I'm leaving. Thank you. She hung up before he could say more. That night, she barely slept again. She sat on the porch with a cup of tea gone cold, staring at the stars, rehearsing what she might say, what she wouldn't say. Boundaries she'd hold no matter what. Part of her wanted to cancel, to text him in the morning and call it off. But another part, the part that had spent 3 years proving she could face hard things, knew she needed this, not for him, for herself. The next afternoon, Elise dropped Zora at her mother's with instructions not to worry, then drove to the coffee shop. Her hands shook slightly on the steering wheel. She parked, took several deep breaths, and walked inside with her head high. Henry was already there, sitting in a corner booth. He looked destroyed, thinner, older, grey threaded through his hair, worn down by consequences in a way no promotion or expensive suit could hide. He stood when she approached, an old habitual courtesy that felt jarring now. "Thank you for meeting me," he said quietly as she sat across from him. "You have 1 hour. I'm going to prison. My lawyers say 3 to 5 years minimum, maybe more depending on what else they find." He said it flatly, accepting reality. "I wanted to see you before that happens, to say things I should have said 3 years ago." Elise folded her hands in her lap to hide their trembling. "I'm listening. Everything that's happening to me, I earned it. I didn't just make mistakes. I made choices, deliberate choices to steal, to lie, to use people and throw them away when I was done with them. I did it to business partners, to colleagues, To my aunt and uncle." He looked directly at her, his eyes red-rimmed. "And I did it to you worst of all." The words hung between them. Elise felt her throat tighten, but said nothing. "I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not the fake kind I pretended to do before. And I finally understand what I did. I was terrified after my father died. Terrified of being alone, of being abandoned again. So I found someone who would never leave me, someone kind enough to sacrifice everything. And I used that kindness like a weapon." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, continued. "I made you dependent so I wouldn't have to fear you leaving. But then I resented you for needing me because it reminded me of my own weakness. So I destroyed you for being exactly what I made you. And when I couldn't face what I'd done, I convinced myself you were the problem, that you weren't enough, that it was your fault." Elise's chest ached with memories she thought she'd buried. The emerald dress, the guards dragging her away, the money on the coffee table. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Why say this now?" "Because I'm going to lose years of my life to prison and I deserve that. But you lost years of your life to me and you didn't deserve any of it." His voice broke completely then. "I wanted you to know before I go away that none of it was your fault. You didn't fail. You weren't lacking. You were perfect and I destroyed you because I was fundamentally broken." Silence stretched between them. Elise studied his face, searching for manipulation, for the old charm that had once convinced her he was her future. She found none, just exhaustion, regret. A man facing the wreckage he'd created. "How are you?" he asked finally, softly. "Really?" The question caught her off guard. She considered lying, saying she was fine, great, perfect. Instead, she told the truth. "I'm a nurse practitioner now. I work at a community clinic. I have a daughter." Understanding and horror crossed his face simultaneously. "You were pregnant when I kicked you out. You were pregnant." "Yes." He closed his eyes, pain etching deeper lines into his face. When he opened them again, they were wet. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you'd already told me to get rid of it. Because you threw me away. Because I chose to protect her from a father who could discard people so easily." He nodded slowly, accepting the answer without protest. Can I see a picture?" Elise hesitated longer this time, then pulled out her phone. Scrolled to her favorite recent photo, Zora at the park, laughing with her arms spread wide like she could embrace the whole world. Henry stared at it for a long moment, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. "She's beautiful. She looks happy." She is. Because she's never known what it's like to be conditional, to be disposable. She just knows she's loved completely. "You did that? You gave her that safety?" "Yes, I did. I won't ask to be in her life. I don't have that right. I'll be in prison for years anyway." He reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope. "This is for you. Information for a trust fund I set up for Zora. $200,000. It's all the money I had left that wasn't seized. It's for her education, her future. It doesn't make up for anything. It's just all I have left to give." Elise took the envelope, feeling its unexpected weight. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did. It's the only decent thing I can still do." He stood to leave, stopped, looked at her one last time. "For what it's worth, you look happy, really happy. Like you found yourself again." "I did. The woman you destroyed died on a bathroom floor in an emerald dress. The woman I am now, she's someone I actually like. Someone built from survival and spite and stubborn refusal to stay broken. You gave me that in the worst possible way, showed me exactly who I never want to be. I'm glad something good came from the wreckage, even if I don't get to see it." He walked out without another word. Elise sat there long after he left, staring at the envelope in her hands, processing everything that had just happened. She drove home in silence. The weight of the conversation settled over her like a heavy blanket, neither comforting nor suffocating, just present. When she picked up Zora from her mother's, Her daughter ran into her arms with the pure joy only small children possess. Elise held her tighter than usual, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and playground dirt. That night, after stories and songs and Zora's soft breathing filled the monitor, Elise sat on the couch with the envelope. She opened it, read the trust fund details, saw the amount that would give Zora choices Elise had never had. She thought about burning it, about rejecting anything from Henry on principle. But this wasn't about Henry anymore. This was about Zora's future, about making sure her daughter would never have to sacrifice her dreams for anyone else's. She deposited the money the next day. Henry was going to prison, facing real consequences for his actions. And he'd given her daughter a future without asking for anything in return. It didn't change the past, didn't make his cruelty less cruel. But it was something, an acknowledgement, a reckoning. More importantly, it was final proof that his power over her life was truly gone. She could take what little good remained from his wreckage and use it for her daughter's benefit, on her own terms. Elise thought about the man who'd walked out of the coffee shop, broken, alone, facing years behind bars with nothing but regret for company. She felt no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet, steady peace. He'd finally faced consequences, had finally taken responsibility. It was too late to save who he'd been, but at least he'd stopped destroying other people. And Elise? She'd stopped letting him define even a single day of her future. That was enough closure for her. He finally understood what he'd destroyed. But understanding doesn't undo damage. It just means he has to live with it now, instead of me. Chapter 8. The Life She Built from Ashes. Happy endings aren't about perfect lives. They're about building lives worth living from broken pieces. 2 years after that coffee shop meeting, Elise stood in her kitchen making breakfast while Zora colored at the table. Morning light streamed through windows in a house Elise had bought herself. Small, modest, but completely hers. "Mama, look, I drew our family." Elise looked at the picture. 2 stick figures holding hands, one big, one small, both smiling under a rainbow. "It's beautiful, baby. Let's put it on the fridge." Life had become this. Simple moments, small joys, building something steady from ruins. She worked at the community health clinic 4 days a week, seeing patients who couldn't afford traditional care. It paid less than the hospital, but filled something in her that money couldn't buy. She was helping people who'd been thrown away by the system, just like she'd been thrown away. She understood them in ways other providers couldn't. Her phone rang. Jessica Rodriguez. "Hey, you still coming to the single moms group tonight?" "Wouldn't miss it." "Good. We have 3 new women joining. Fresh divorces. They're going to need us." Elise had become a leader in the single mothers support group. She mentored newly divorced women, helped them navigate those impossible early days, reminded them they'd survive because she had. After breakfast, she took Zora to preschool. Her daughter had friends, was thriving, knew nothing about fathers who abandoned or mothers who'd been destroyed and rebuilt themselves. She just knew love, security, consistency. "Bye, Mama. Love you. Love you more, baby girl." At work, Elise saw her usual rotation of patients. A woman fleeing domestic violence who needed prenatal care, an elderly man with no insurance who needed medication, a teenager thrown out by her parents who needed hope. She gave them all the same thing: care without judgment, treatment without questions, dignity without conditions. During lunch, she got a text from Margaret. They'd stayed in touch over the years. Mitch had recovered fully from his heart attack. They'd moved to Florida, started fresh, trying to rebuild their own lives after the Henry disaster. "Mitch and I are doing well. Hope you and Zora are too. Still grateful you never used that evidence to hurt Henry. You had every right, but you took the high road. That says everything about who you are." Elise smiled. She'd chosen not to be involved in Henry's prosecution, not out of mercy, but out of self-preservation. She'd focused on building her life instead of destroying his. It had turned out to be the right choice. That evening at the support group, she listened to new women tell their stories. Stories that sounded so much like hers. Husbands who left. Promises that shattered. Lives that imploded. "How did you get through it?" one of them asked Elise. "How did you survive and build this life? Because right now I feel like I'm drowning." Elise thought carefully before answering. "I stopped waiting for him to validate me, stopped waiting for him to apologize or change or see what he'd done. I just focused on the next right thing. Get out of bed, feed my baby, go to work, repeat." And slowly, without realizing it, I stopped being the woman he destroyed and started being someone new, someone stronger. Does it stop hurting? Eventually, not completely, but enough that you can breathe around it, enough that it becomes part of your story instead of your whole story. After the meeting, Carmen walked Elise to her car. "You're good at this, helping people. You should consider speaking professionally. Your story could help thousands of women." "Maybe someday. Right now I'm focused on being Zora's mom and doing my job. That's enough. It's more than enough. You've built an amazing life from nothing." At home, Elise tucked Zora into bed, read 3 stories, sang 2 songs. "Mama," Zora said sleepily. "Do I have a daddy?" Elise's heart stopped. They'd never talked about this. Zora had never asked. "Everyone has a biological father," Elise said carefully. "That's just science. But not everyone has a daddy who's in their life. You have me, and Grandma, and Aunt Carmen and Aunt Jessica. You have so many people who love you completely. But why doesn't my daddy want to know me? It's complicated, baby, but it has nothing to do with you. You are perfect and wonderful and lovable. Sometimes adults make choices that don't make sense. His choice to not be here, that's about him, not about you. Never about you. Do you think he ever wonders about me? I know he does, but wondering isn't the same as showing up, and you deserve people who show up." Zora seemed satisfied with that answer. She fell asleep moments later, little face peaceful in the nightlight's glow. Elise sat on the edge of Zora's bed for a long time, watching her daughter breathe. This perfect little person who'd saved her by giving her a reason to survive when surviving felt impossible. Later, Elise sat on her porch with tea, looking at stars. She thought about the last 5 years, the pain, the struggle, the slow, agonizing rebuild of her life and identity. She thought about Henry, in prison somewhere, serving his sentence, living with consequences. She thought about the woman she'd been, the one who believed love meant sacrifice, who thought being chosen meant being enough. That woman was dead, had died on a bathroom floor in an emerald dress. This woman, the one she'd become, was built from those ashes, built from survival and single motherhood and finishing her degree while working nights, built from choosing herself and her daughter over and over again. Henry's crimes and imprisonment didn't give her closure. She'd found that herself through the work of rebuilding, through proving she could survive and thrive without him. She looked around her porch, at the house she'd bought, at the life she'd built brick by careful brick. She'd won, not because Henry lost, but because she'd refused to stay lost. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "Got the nursing school acceptance letter, starting in the fall. You inspired me. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to chase dreams." Elise smiled. This was her legacy. Not the marriage that failed, not the man who destroyed her, but the women she'd helped, the strength she'd modeled, the proof that you could survive the unsurvivable and build something beautiful from the ruins. She went inside, checked on Zora one more time, kissed her forehead softly. "We did it, baby girl," she whispered. "We survived. We built something beautiful. And no one can ever take that away from us." She climbed into her own bed, in her own house, in her own life that she'd built from nothing, and for the first time in 5 years, she slept without any dreams about emerald dresses or shattered champagne glasses or the man who'd tried to erase her. She dreamed instead of Zora's laugh, of her degree on the wall, of women she'd helped, of the life she'd built that was entirely, completely, beautifully hers. Henry had tried to destroy her, but she'd refused to stay destroyed, and that was the greatest victory of all. He tried to erase me, but I refused to disappear. And in the end, I built something so beautiful from those broken pieces that his cruelty became irrelevant. Epilogue. 5 years later. Zora was 8 years old now, brilliant, curious, kind, everything Elise could have hoped for and more. Elise had been promoted to director of the community health clinic, was mentoring new nurse practitioners, had published articles about trauma-informed care for domestic violence survivors, had spoken at conferences about rebuilding after loss. She'd built a whole life, a beautiful life, a life that had nothing to do with Henry Thornton except for the daughter they'd created together. One day Zora came home from school with questions. "Mama, everyone in my class is doing family tree projects. They have to talk about their parents. Who's my daddy?" Elise had been dreading this question for years, had practiced answers in her head 1,000 times. But now that it was here, all the practiced words disappeared. "Come sit with me, baby." They sat on the couch together. Elise pulled Zora close. "You have a biological father. That's just science. Everyone does. But he's not in our lives. He made that choice before you were even born." "Why?" "Because he was broken in ways he didn't understand. He hurt people because he was hurting, including me, including you, by not being here." "Did he know about me?" "Eventually, yes. And he was sorry. He left you money for college and wrote you a letter you can read when you're older. But being sorry isn't the same as showing up, and you deserve people who show up." "Are you sad he's not here?" "No, baby, because we built something beautiful, just you and me. We have Grandma and Aunt Jessica and Aunt Carmen and all the people who choose to love us every day. That's family, not the people who are supposed to love you but don't. The people who choose you and keep choosing you no matter what." "Do you think he would have loved me?" "I think he loved the idea of you. But love isn't an idea. It's action. It's showing up every day even when it's hard. And he couldn't do that. But that's about him, not about you. You are perfect and lovable and worthy of everything good." Zora thought about this for a long moment. "Can I tell my class I have you and Grandma, and we're a family that way?" "You can tell them whatever feels true to you." "Okay." Zora hugged Elise tight. "I like our family just how it is." "Me too, baby. Me too." That night, after Zora was asleep, Elise pulled out the sealed letter Henry had left for his daughter, the one Zora could read when she turned 18. She held it in her hands, wondering what it said, what Henry wanted Zora to know. But she didn't open it. That was Zora's choice to make when she was ready. She put it back in the safety deposit box along with all the evidence she'd never needed to use, all the ammunition she'd gathered to protect herself and her daughter. She'd never needed any of it, had built her life without revenge, without destruction, just quiet survival that turned into thriving. Looking back now, 8 years after that night in the emerald dress, Elise understood something she hadn't understood then. Henry Thornton hadn't destroyed her. He'd destroyed the version of herself she'd built around him, the version that believed her value came from being chosen, the version that thought love meant sacrifice. But destroying that version had forced her to build something better, something stronger, something entirely her own. The woman she'd become wouldn't have existed without the destruction of the woman she'd been. That didn't make what Henry did okay, didn't excuse his cruelty, didn't erase the pain, but it meant the pain hadn't been wasted. She'd transformed it into purpose, into helping other women survive what she'd survived, into raising a daughter who knew her worth wasn't conditional, into building a life that proved you could start over at rock bottom and still end up somewhere beautiful. She looked around her house, at the life she'd built, at the woman she'd become, and she finally, truly understood what it meant to be enough. Not because someone chose her, not because someone loved her, but because she'd chosen herself, had loved herself enough to survive and rebuild and keep going when giving up would have been easier. The woman Henry threw away had become the woman who couldn't be thrown away because she'd learned to hold herself, and that was the ending she'd been fighting for all along. The end. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but that's not quite right. What doesn't kill you gives you a choice, to let it define you or to define yourself in spite of it. I chose the latter, and that choice changed everything. My dearest sisters, my radiant queens, my unbreakable warriors, come close and let me speak to your hearts with all the tenderness and fierce love you deserve. You are the daughters of resilience, the bearers of quiet miracles, the women who carry entire worlds on your shoulders and still rise each morning with grace. I see you. I honor you. I love you beyond measure for every scar you've turned into strength, for every tear you've transformed into wisdom, for every time you chose yourself when the world tried to convince you that you weren't enough. You are not just enough. You are everything. Your light is not dependent on anyone's gaze. It burns from within, fierce and eternal, and no one, no betrayal, no cruelty can ever dim it. My beautiful ones, wrap yourselves in this truth like the softest armor. The greatest love you will ever receive is the love you give to your own soul. Never shrink to fit someone else's fear. Never silence your dreams to soothe another's insecurity. Never believe that being chosen by a man defines your worth. You were born whole, magnificent, and worthy of devotion that lifts you higher rather than asks you to disappear. When someone tries to throw you away, remember Elise. Remember how she rose from the ashes of humiliation, carrying life inside her, rebuilding brick by brick until she became a home for herself and her daughter. That same power lives in you. You are worthy of love that sees you fully and celebrates you wildly. And until that love finds you, or even if it never does in the shape you once imagined, love yourself with the ferocity of a mother protecting her child. You, my darling sisters, are the love story you've been waiting for. I am so proud of you. I believe in you, and I love you deeply, truly, forever.